You might say it's old news now, the Hyte Y60. Well, I tell you, if this is old, I don't want to be new. There's simply nothing like it. You've got a striking 3-panel design, fish tank look, pure, simple and clean. It's shot into the stratosphere thanks to the pure white components on show today. It's a modern classic through and through. This is another customer build by my company PC36, designed using our custom spec service, where the customer gets to choose all the parts. So you might say, really? That customer made the build every bit as much as I did. The RGB elements give off a crisp and clean look. The Stimer V2 cables by Lian-Li are an additional string in the bow that provides a unique touch. So it's a nice build. But what of the case? What's Gucci with the Hyte Y60? Not only are we going to talk through the build, we're also going to show you the different features of the case as well. Cost me £210 this case, which is really up there in price. For that, you get the case, you get the PCIe riser piece, and you get 3 plain non-RGB fans, so no RGB on show. You get 2 in the basement chamber, and you get 1 at the rear of the case as well. That makes it expensive, and quite honestly, beyond the budget of many builders. You might have seen our previous video where we managed to build a whole budget PC for well under £300. It suffers the same fate, this case, as the Lian-Li 011 Dynamic, in order to get the full effect from the case, you need to pack it out with RGB fans and coolers and whatnot. I think for this price, there should be at least 3 RGB fans included. So that's the price done, but how about the layout and the build process? Good question. Let's get into that. To access the inside, you take off a rear thumb screw and pull the glass off. Same for the cable management chamber on the other side. From the rear, you unscrew a few screws which will loosen the front glass panel. That leaves you with the thin pane in the centre of the 3 glass panels. You'll need a smaller Phillips No. 1 screwdriver to undo 4 tiny screws on the corners, the top and the bottom, and that's in order to take that panel out. Now, once this panel is out, be sure not to lean too heavily on that top corner, because there's now actually no support under it whatsoever. You could easily snap this thing in half. Cable management side, first on our tour of this case. 011 Dynamic users will find this familiar. There's lots of depth, but very little width for the cable runs, which is actually fine for stuffing it in there, but it's very difficult to make the cable tie downs really clean. But that's fine. You know, I don't really care about that. I'd certainly use a fully modular power supply in this case, because all the excess cabling is going to become quite difficult to manage if you're using a non-modular power supply. You want to hook up all your modular cables to their respective devices, then put the actual unit in the case towards the end. That's so that you can more easily route your cables. The cable cutouts are generous on this case, which I quite like. That's it, it's just fine. In the bottom of the case are 2 120mm non-RGB 3-pin DC controlled fans set to intake. Now, I left these here for the build. I couldn't really see any reason to upgrade them, but if you wanted max airflow, theoretically you could replace them. I wouldn't bother. In the top is where you can put a 240mm or 360mm liquid cooler. You have to take out this sort of top bracket, which is held in by screws. It's kind of like a tray. You then sandwich this bracket between the fans of your cooler and its radiator, and then slot it back in later. I found this really a bit of a faff. They could have kept it simple and just top mounted it in the normal way like you see on other cases, for instance the TD500 mesh. Now, just like your mum getting dolled up for a night out on the town with me, I like to leave the sexy side until last, the presentation side. Here, there is room for ATX, MATX and ITX motherboards. Please don't use MATX or ITX boards though. You're doing this case a bit of a disservice looks-wise. For fan mounts, there's the aforementioned 3 120mm slots at the top, you've got that 120mm slot on the rear, and you've got space on the side for 2 120 or 140mm fans. Of course, you could also put a liquid cooler here, 240 or 280mm. In our build, we've got the side fans set to exhaust, but the only reason is because it looks better. If you have those fancy double-sided or reverse blade fans that will pull the air in while still looking good, then you're absolutely set. In terms of actual airflow, you would be better having these as intake because you're going to get a more positive pressure, pushing cool air in and up and out through the liquid cooler. but we went for max aesthetics. That is what the customer wanted in this build. The riser piece is pre-installed, which is fine, but to be honest, you'll probably need to remove it in order to comfortably slide your motherboard in. I mean, you could probably just squeeze it past if you like. Try it and let me know. But if it is to be removed, it's held in by 6 screws at the slot. So you've got 2 larger screws and then 4 smaller screws. And you've also got obviously the one screw on the plug itself on the back panel of the PC. It is PCIe Generation 4 certified and it works flawlessly, no problems whatsoever. The riser presents your video card with the fans facing the glass. That's what vertical mounting does. For this AERO model, it's actually fine, but I can see really chunky 4-slot video cards like the RTX 4090. I can really see them getting choked out by being too close to the glass on this case. In this case, you are forced to vertically mount. You can't put your graphics card in the normal way, there's just not space for it. So plan your parts choice well. It's also really tough to add any other PCIe devices to your motherboard because of this, with the exception of those that come with a low profile bracket. That's something else to take note of. If you want a Wi-Fi enabled system, I'd certainly recommend, if you're going to use this case, to get a motherboard that has Wi-Fi already built in. The riser piece, just like all risers, is very fragile, so if you're going to transport your PC anywhere, you definitely want to take your video card out first and then replace it once you've moved the system. The shearing forces on that PCIe slot, they're just going to completely destroy the riser piece. Ask me how I know. Please, ask me. Well, seeing as you asked so nicely, I shipped this PC out to the customer. Customer got it lit up beautifully, no display. Got them to take a photo of the inside of the system, and of course that whole PCIe riser piece is completely sheared, so I had to buy, at my own cost, 80 quid, a new riser piece to send it out with instructions on how to replace it. Luckily it was all smoothed over nicely, but yes, in the future I will be sending out these PCs without the graphics card in the riser, so take note. Now that you've seen the case, what do you think overall? Tell me in the comments below. And while you're thinking, I'll give you my thoughts. The Hyte Y60 is one of a kind. It's truly unique, it's beautifully designed, and it has excellent build quality with high quality materials. It can really form the base of a stunning centerpiece that you are proud to display in your battle station. The downsides for me are that the riser should have the option to go further back so that larger 4-slot video cards can be properly accommodated. Many parts of this build could be challenging for a beginner, but anyone with a build or two under their belt should be just fine. The included user manual is actually pretty high quality and it's going to keep you on the right track. And finally, at this price, as the downside, it really should include a few ARGB fans. Bottom line then, is it worth the money? Is it worth £210/$/euros? You can't ask me that without nuance. If you just want max performance, then of course not. Grab a Cooler Master TD500 mesh or a Fractal Meshify C and be done with it. Save your money. But chances are you're watching this video because you really love this case, and more specifically you love how it looks. And if you're at this point researching this case, there's no reason for me to put you off. You're not going to be disappointed with this case. Just take heed of the things that we've said in this video. So video's done. It's over. Comments below please, like the video, subscribe, etc. We'll keep more of these things coming as long as you guys are engaging. Until next time, I'll catch ya.